I'm Lin-Manuel Miranda, and you're listening to Hard Knock Life.
Well, it's the NOC in full color, you see me? The Hard Knock Life, comics, movies, and TV, yeah. Pop culture with a different perspective.
Welcome to Hard Knock Life. I'm Keith Chow.
I'm Brittany Monet.
Hi, I'm Dominic Ma.
The gang is all here.
Hey, everybody.
I'm no longer sick.
You're a little raspy.
She just holds it down all the time.
Sure do.
You're the constant.
You've been very consistent in our sector of the multiverse. You're the one casting thing that people can rely on. Everyone else is like, oh, switching roles and in and out.
No one here is starting cults or grooming young children and burglarizing homes in Vermont. That's for sure.
Heck no.
How can one person even do such a number of scandalous things? You'd have to be super fast.
Well, good thing Ezra is the Flash.
Anyways, gosh. Do we got to start with that?
We're going to start there because last week on the podcast, Brittany and I were talking about the various options Warner Brothers Discovery had in their arsenal to deal with this Flash movie. There was a report last week that said that they were looking at three options. One was Ezra will put out a statement, enter therapy, and they'll go on with the schedule. The movie will still come out in June. Or have Ezra step back and they'll do minimum press for the movie and they'll just kind of like release it without Ezra, or they'll just cancel it altogether. And we discussed it briefly on the podcast last week. And as soon as we stopped recording, a statement came out from Ezra Miller saying, I've been a bad person and I'm going to therapy. So we were like, okay.
Was the statement like on Twitter? So was it like official press release kind of statement?
I think it came out on Twitter, but I think it was the Hollywood Reporter had the actual statement or something. So what do you think, Brittany? Are we still getting The Flash in June 2023? Or
as of right now, based on Ezra coming forward with a statement, I would say yes, because, people like to see someone, pull themselves up and, make a comeback type of thing. So I do think that, yes, there's a possibility we will still get the Flash movie, but it is just crazy unfair compared to Batgirl being shelved when, she's not going around kidnapping people and killing people and beating people up. Like, she's not doing any of that. And yet her movie is the one that's so that I feel like that's really just sad that that's what's going on. But I don't know.
Yeah, it does suggest some kind of double standard. And I realized a lot of people were talking about that, but I couldn't quite figure if it was in terms of people think The Flash is a bigger deal movie, so it has to come out, it can't be stopped, or whether people are reacting to did a test screening of Batgirl and just didn't like it. Or because for me The Flash is not that big a deal. I personally would like a Batgirl movie much more than a Flash movie. I could lose a Flash movie and I wouldn't really care because, full disclosure, I like The Flash, but I've never really liked Ezra Miller in the role. And that whole, Zack Snyder constructed version of the DC stuff, I think is still messed up.
But I mean, I think they when it comes to why, there are a couple reasons. I think Zaslav had said on the investor call, he actually likes this movie, so that's one thing in its corner, I guess. I'm the more and more I read about this guy, the less I give a shit about what he thinks. But that's another topic for another part of the podcast episode. And the other thing, I think you're right. They did sink a lot more money into The Flash. Of course, it's a big budget theatrical release. The most, and you guys talked about this when I was out. The most fucked up part about the Batgirl cancellation isn't even about was it a good movie? Did it have a bad? It was well, we can write down. We can get a tax write-off. And it does make you remember that at the end of the day, Warner Brothers is just a corporate behemoth that only cares about the bottom line and does not care about artistic integrity. So having that nasty reminder, once in a while that we are dealing with IP from corporate behemoths is always something to bring us back down the earth. But that's and we're kind of seeing this beyond just Batgirl and Scooby-Doo. HBO Max has been cleaning house in terms of staff and employees. They've been laying people off left and right. And they're discreetly in some cases and not discreetly in other cases, just wiping shit off the streaming service.
Yeah, which is so terrible because it's like even if something wasn't a success, Netflix still keeps it like on their like, you know, their platform. And it just feels very like, I don't know. And it's bad, especially since most of the stuff they seem to be pulling off is more like stuff
POC.
that has like, yeah, diversity and not just people of color, because there's also like LGBTQ
Right.
stuff that I think is being pulled too. So it's just like the fact that everything that seems more, you know, woke, I hate saying woke, but you know what I mean? The like woke diversity like train is just like it's a bad look.
They're the first to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The promise of having like a streaming service for each of these studios has always been like, okay, this is a place we can put our library to access all of our content, right? And you know, I know Dominic, when I was out, you had mentioned I must have been really sick because you know, there's nothing I like more than talking about, you know, the Warner Brothers catalog of IP on a streaming service. And
Yeah, it's one of your favorite rants.
taking advantage of that. And you know, like one of the problems with what they're doing is that like to me it goes against the whole notion of why you even have your own back catalog of stuff, right? Because that's why we, you know, that's the promise of Disney Plus, right? We can literally see everything Disney's ever put out, you know. And Disney was always notorious about putting shit in the vault. Remember those clamshell VHSs? They would come out for like a couple months and then you could never buy the Little Mermaid again. And then maybe 5 years later it would come out and, oh, you can buy it now, you know. Like now Disney's like, here, everything is bed knobs and broomsticks, whatever. Like watch that, you know.
That one.
You can literally like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. You can watch that. You can watch literally everything Disney's ever published, ever. And like the thing about HBO Max is that like I think industry wide has been viewed as one of the best streaming catalogs because of just the classic content of Warner Brothers Studios, and then you have all of the, you know, Warner Brothers animation stuff, the Looney Tunes. Like they're killing like. They acquired Sesame Street, which was already kind of weird when HBO Max launched. Like Sesame Street, this like staple of public broadcasting, is now behind a paywall. I was like, all right, fine. You know, if the Children's Workshop needs to survive, now they like cut like 200 episodes of Sesame Street. You know, like I don't understand.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Well, I think they're definitely moving away from children's programming. That's one of the things that's getting like just chopped down. The Sesame Street stuff, a lot of the animation stuff, a lot of the Cartoon Network stuff, like they're not looking for like kids programming. I mean, I don't know.
But they're owned by Discovery now. I thought that was a more educational one, or is that just? I mean,
Discovery used to be educational. Discovery is now like 90 Day Fiancé.
Okay,
like
so it's
Food
for
Network.
Adults and reality shows.
Yeah,
now,
I mean,
or
I don't know. Like, it's so sad because HBO Max was easily my favorite of the streamers. Again, just because of its like wide. I mean, aside from like the branding shit that I've always had a problem with, but it's wide catalog films going all the way back to the early days of like Casablanca and stuff, all the Criterion stuff on there, and then, of course the entire DC library was on there. And you know, why would they kill like Aquaman, King of Atlantis? I love that show, and they and they got rid of it. It was like animated? A 5-episode animated Aquaman show. It just came out like last year. Cooper Andrews played the lead role. I interviewed him for the show and like they killed it. I was like,
you mean they killed it like it's not on the
they wiped it. It's not
anymore?
on service anymore.
No, that's just weird.
Yeah, like that's the things that have been on there. They're like there's that show Generation. They killed Ms. Fletcher, which had like Catherine Hahn, who's like a big star, and they like killed that show. Like it's one thing to say, all right, Batgirl's, you know, even though it's in the can, we're not going to release it so that we can get a tax write-off. I don't understand why you would just like start hacking away at various shows that's already been on the service for 2 years.
Yeah, like even if you're not, like I said, like even if you're not going to renew it, why would you remove it? Like that's why I said Netflix doesn't remove their shows even if they don't renew it for another season. It's still on there, and it's just like it makes no sense to just like pull stuff off that is your own. Like I can understand if it was like, you know, a show that you didn't actually produce or license, whatever.
Out. Right,
like I can understand that, but stuff that is actually from your own, like, you know, production company and you're pulling it off, like it's just like, what's
maybe it will come out that they didn't get the contracts right to survive the merger or something. Maybe there's some rights issue involved.
And I'm sure there's some sort of like tax liability, right? Like if these shows that were produced under the previous regime, you know, if we keep them on the service, you know, it doesn't cost us anything, but if we take them off the service, we'll save like $30 million or whatever. Like, because that's the whole Batgirl thing. They spent $90 million on it, but you know, they can write off that money and go to all the like the debt pay. I mean, again, when it gets into like the corporate speak, it starts to like, you know, your eyes glaze over and you just realize what the fuck.
Yeah.
But,
it's almost like you need a good lawyer. Sorry, I should have saved that segue for later. But wait, there's also a rumor that they would relaunch but be called WB Discovery. Would that make you happy, Keith?
No, what the streaming service, the WB Discovery Plus?
They just changed the name with WB in the front. Would you have won?
No, that's stupid too. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. For those of you who don't remember,
throw you a bone.
The argument from 2 years ago, my issue with HBO Max as the name of the Warner Media streaming service was that it kind of diluted the HBO brand, which is part of the argument, right? Because like HBO in itself is a distinct brand, right? Game of Thrones falls under that. The Wire.
House of the Dragon's out tonight.
Right, House of the Dragon comes.
Sorry.
Right, we're actually recording this before we watch House of the Dragon, so we're not going to talk about it. We might talk about it next week. But those, you know, there's stuff that's associated with the HBO brand, right? And then the Max originals were not actually part of the HBO brand. So a lot of the, you know, Peacemaker, which is also DC, which is kind of weird. But you also had like Hacks, which is under the Max original, the Flight Attendant, which is under the Max. That wasn't necessarily HBO. That was Max original. And then, you know, like to me, Warner Brothers was the bigger media legacy than just HBO. HBO, yes, is a great legacy. Got a lot of prestige. It's only been around like 40 years. Warner Brothers has been around 100 years. You know what I mean? Like, again, Casablanca is what you associate with Warner Brothers, like classic films. So my thing was like lean into the Warner. Like when you go to Los Angeles, you go to the Warner Brothers studio tour. You don't go to the HBO studio tour. You know what I'm saying? No. Like it all falls under Warner Brothers. But I mean, again, that's like still marketing shit. It doesn't still at the end of the day matter.
It's a good fight, Keith.
Yeah. Oh, and you know what? Here's the thing about Warner Brothers too, is like over the last 20 years, they've gone through so many corporate mergers that just fuck shit up every time. Like when AOL bought Warner Brothers, and like, you know, they were AOL Time Warner for a while.
Yeah.
And then AT&T bought them. And now it's like everyone's just, I think part of the problem with Warner Brothers is there's just no more identity to what Warner Brothers means anymore. You know.
Oh my gosh, I unleashed the Kraken. Sorry. I was just trying to make you happy, like just in a sense that maybe that could happen, that you finally get the WB name thing. But if it doesn't make you happy,
it doesn't make me. Well, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like even Discovery buying Warner Brothers it feels like it's kind of like, again, with this Zaslav guy, it almost feels like we're this like stupid basic cable reality show network, and we're going to like run this legendary studio into the ground essentially. You know what I'm saying? It's like we want more, you know, House Hunters, less cinema. You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of how that
could happen. That's the dynamic in play.
I think just a lot of it is, again, it's studios started just to think audiences were dumb and wouldn't go see certain things, and it's just like there's a lot of factors into why people aren't showing up to movie theaters. Even pre-COVID, there's lots of reasons. It's people have talked about how, like, you know, it's not necessarily most accessible to handicapped people. So it's like, it's that movies are expensive, and then certain movies you only release it in like LA, you know, or New York City or Chicago, and then you're like, oh, how come this movie didn't do well? Well, you only release it into like the major cities. There's no faith in other people seeing stuff. You're not marketing other stuff. So yeah, you're seeing this decline in the industry from audiences because you don't have faith in them. And it's just like, I don't know.
And I think that, I mean, that's a good, like, not having faith is kind of like the curse of what Warner Brothers has been doing for, again, the last at least 30 years. Going back to, you know, more specific to what we talk about at this podcast, like this whole 10-year plan for DC, right? Like, how many times have we heard that in the last 30 years, right? Like everyone's 10-year plan. Like one of the problems is that like whatever 10-year plan they implement, 10 months into it, 10 minutes into it, they're like, let's change that. You know what I mean? Like there's never any, because, you know, yes, I'm with Dom. I'm not the biggest believer in the Snyderverse. You know, I think this is a good opportunity to like just start over. But at the same time, it's like they killed that 10 minutes into that first movie, right? Because it was like, oh, BVS sucks. Let's flip it all, flip the script. And, Brittany and I talked about this last week. Like, that's been their MO forever, right? Like, telling the TV side, oh, you can't use these characters because they're tied up over here.
Yeah.
I don't like, it's never, they've never just given someone total control the way Disney says, hey, Feige, like, we'll cash the checks, you make the decisions, and we're not going to second guess you. You know what I mean? Like, Warner Brothers has never been like that with anything DC oriented. It's always like studio notes constantly. Like, DC's not even its own studio. One thing that's different that I don't know a lot of people realize, Marvel Studios is its own studio, like within Disney, and they operate like a studio. DC does not operate like, because like DC is just the IP that various, like the TV side, the video game side, the movie side, the animation side, they can like use, but there's not that, it's not a studio in the way Marvel Studios is a studio.
Yeah. So they're confused. And, a bigger business head would say they do not have synergized corporate structure and that affects their product or something like that.
Yeah.
But it is kind of true on a level. But can I say one more thing about the Flash movie? Just because I was thinking about it. Like, wasn't it the case that, correct me if I'm wrong, was Keaton going to show up in both Batgirl and the Flash movie?
Yes.
Okay. So people who are fond of Keaton were doubly sad again for the Batgirl cancellation thing. But now that I think about it, maybe one reason why they're still so committed to putting this Flash movie out wasn't it supposed to be kind of like what No Way Home did for the Marvel universe, and that it fully legitimized this multiverse, different movie franchises appearing in the same movie thing. So I mean, some guy on an executive level is looking at No Way Home and going, that worked great, that made $1 zillion, this totally works. So just in the sense that it's not so much about the Flash, but it's about that plot, the gateway thing of, old Warner Brothers.
I think two things,
DC
right?
characters.
Yeah, definitely tapping into the nostalgia of Keaton Batman,
Mm-hmm.
but also like it was an opportunity again before all of the merger shit and all the Ezra shit. The Flash movie, I think at one point was called Flashpoint before it was just called The Flash, was also looked at as a reset. Like this was an opportunity, the Snyderverse did what it did. The Snyder Cut even came out. But I think everyone looked to the Flash movie as a way to okay, this is the reset button. Yeah. We don't have to continue the Snyderverse. We don't have to. We could bring back Keaton Batman and he'll be the main Batman going forward, which was why he showed up in Batgirl. Allegedly was supposed to be in Aquaman a couple weeks ago. The biggest news coming out of Warner Brothers a couple weeks ago before all this bullshit happened was Ben Affleck was returning as Batman because he reshot some scenes for Aquaman, which was originally supposed to be Michael Keaton. But Ben Affleck came back to shoot scenes in Aquaman. And I think a lot of that was because of the shuffling of the schedule. The Flash now is coming out after Aquaman. And so they had to go back, whatever. It wouldn't make sense for Michael Keaton to do like scenes if he's not introduced into the universe until the Flash. So like it was supposed to be like a No Way Home nostalgia play, but it was also supposed to be like an opportunity to reset the DCEU. And at this point, like, I don't think it works in either way because one, it's not like they're going to reset the DCEU into like whatever Flash was going to set forth because they're going to start over with a whole new plan or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And I think the nostalgia play, to your point, it's just going to come off as a cheap No Way Home ripoff, which is again is like Marvel has always got a one up DC, because like this Flashpoint movie was in like the plan way before No Way Home. Like this movie was supposed to come out like 5 years ago. Yeah.
How about that?
And the whole idea of the multiverse was always a DC thing.
Much more so.
I advocated a long time ago on the Nerds of Color, like, forget the DCEU. It should be the DCEM, right? The DC Extended Multiverse. Yeah. And bring in like, Christian Bale and Michael Keaton, bring in all the like, because unlike Marvel, like the only reason it works for Spider-Man is that's the only character in Marvel where there's been like a legacy of other movies. But for DC, there's like a shit ton of Supermans, a shit ton of Batmans. Yeah.
And they did it in the TV Crisis on the Infinite Earth. So it's not like they didn't do it, but that was like on a TV scale and not a
right. Well, and that's why I always said the Arrowverse is actually the biggest equivalent to the MCU that we've had over the last 10 years, just on a different scale. But in terms of like connectivity and stuff. But again, the way Marvel always eats DC's lunch, like when DC's like, we're going to get our two most iconic heroes in battle, Marvel's like, that's a good idea. Let's do that and do it first and do it better. And they did Civil War.
That's the thing, though, is like it's always like that. Like DC's like, we're gonna do this, and like you said, Marvel beats them to it because
DC can't get their shit together.
And then again, I don't know. I know there's always people like to say that Kevin Feige interferes too much with like the creatives, and I don't know how true that actually is or whatever. But regardless of what's going on that end, at least whatever they're doing, like you said, Marvel does it better. They get it done, and some people get upset that they're outdoing DC, but it's because DC's own or Warner Brothers interference and just constantly, I don't know, they can't decide on what they want, and it's frustrating because like I've said, DC has great characters, but some people who don't read the comics aren't going to know that because of the constant fumbling of the cinematic universe for them or whatever.
Hey, also ironically, the multiverse device gives the really easy way to recast the Flash. Did you guys cover that in the last one?
Well, I mean,
it just flows in there. You could get somebody else in there.
You have to, right?
It would be very awkward re-edits, but it might be better than nothing.
Yeah. Well, I read somewhere someone said they should just go ahead and retitle the movie Batman: The Flash, and then just let Michael Keaton do all the press, because or
even a Flash, some Flash TBD,
and then just make it a full-on Batman movie. Because again, I think for the most part, I'll speak for myself. All I care about is the Batman shit in that movie anyway. I could care less about Barry going back and saving his mom. I feel like they did Flashpoint better on TV anyway. And that's another example. The Flash TV show's ending this year. Grant Gustin ain't got shit to do.
He's probably recovering.
He's played the character for almost 10 years.
Yeah, I know.
Like he's probably gonna want to move on. But it sucks that not to say that TV is lesser, but the fact that there was a TV show on the CW that has done better with the Flash than the actual film side is just it's crazy. It's not something that I would have thought from 10, 15
Well, that
years
was my
ago.
argument when they first announced Ezra Miller before Batman versus Superman. And I said to myself, that doesn't make any sense because, this was the same problem that happened in Smallville, right? They cast Brandon Routh as Superman in a Superman movie when you had Smallville right there, and they should have just let the Smallville cast graduate to the movies after 5 seasons and let them play the, Superman Lex Luthor story. Instead, you had Tom Welling, Brandon Routh playing the same character at the same time. And, arguably Smallville, because it's a TV show, has a deeper fan base. People care about those characters because you spend time with them week after week after week for 5 seasons at that point. Whereas one of the reasons Superman Returns didn't work is that you don't care about those versions of the character. What we talk about MCU, right? I don't know who Brandon Routh, Kate Bosworth's Lois Lane, Frank Langella's Perry White, Kevin Spacey's Lex Luthor. We don't give a shit about these versions of these characters. If that was Tom Welling Superman or Erica Durance's Lois Lane, Michael Rosenbaum's Lex Luthor, if we spent 5 years with them, getting to know them, and then seeing them become the iconic versions of themselves, that would have been a big deal. And the same so I said the same thing with the Flash. You had this really, and at that time the Flash was amazing. It kind of fell off over the last few years. But imagine had they just let Grant Gustin, Candace Patton, Tom Cavanaugh graduate to the film universe and to tell theirs, then we wouldn't have the shitty last 5 seasons of the Flash, because they'd be doing movie budget size, awesome movies, and that's again, but that's the foresight is never there because the way Warner Brothers is situated is this is the TV side, this is the movie side, and you can't have the TVs become the movies. Even though Star Trek used to do that shit all the time, right? Star Trek would graduate to the movies and make awesome movies.
Yeah, I think they're not that hot on that model anymore. They did use
nobody does that anymore, but there was a time when TV shows would become movies and then they become movie franchises.
Yeah. Wait, hey, DC TV heads, who was the flashy character in Smallville? Can you remember? Was it Impulse?
Well, there was a Flash.
There was one Justice League episode. Sorry, this is pure trivia. I was just asking in case you remember.
Well, I remember. No, there's the actor's in Kyle Gallner or something. He was Bart Allen.
I was gonna say the kid from Jennifer's Body who gets eaten.
Yeah.
Oh,
He
okay.
played Bart Allen. And
Mhm.
technically
Bart
not the
was-
Flash. He was Impulse. I
That was
guess, but-
Impulse, right? Which I think is
Right.
cooler name. Anyway, I'm just saying there have been flashes.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't think I know what I'm
absolutely.
saying
Well,
now.
again, they should take advantage and bring in as many different versions of the Flash. Did that too on Crisis, right? Like they brought back John Wesley Shipp, not only as Jay Garrick and not only as Henry Allen, but as the fucking '90s Barry
Mhm.
Allen too. Like,
Yeah.
that's the promise of like having such a long legacy of live action actors playing these iconic roles on the DC side, even more so than
Yeah.
Marvel, because it's not like like those old school Incredible Hulk. Like, I guess you could bring Lou Ferrigno in for a
Ben
cameo in
Affleck.
She-Hulk.
Never
Ben
say
Affleck,
never.
Ben
As
Affleck, Daredevil.
Oh, that's Daredevil, right?
That's true, right? Like there are a couple
I'm
legacy
sorry,
characters,
I
but
love
not to the
that
extent that
movie.
you have DC. Well, any final word on the DC side before we switch over to the Marvel side?
Just do better, DC.
Do better. I was going to say this for Nerd Popping, but since we're on the topic of DC, I will say finally saw DC League of Super Pets.
Oh,
How was that?
That was adorable. It's probably the best thing DC's put out in years.
yeah.
And I wish
Better
more
than
people.
Lego Batman?
Oh no, yeah.
Yeah,
I have something to say after this, but go ahead.
it's yeah. I mean, it's up there with Lego Batman. Well, first of all, Keanu Reeves is Batman, so that in and of itself is
Yeah.
like just perfect casting. And no, I mean, I actually went in skeptical because I thought like it was going to be like, Secret Life of Pets, which was an obnoxious animated movie.
I never saw it, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's because those kids animated movies that are just like an assault on your sense, like the Minions movies. You know what I mean? Like you kind of go into the theater and it's like all 5-year-olds in the theater, and you're just like, you leave with a headache. That's what I was kind of anticipating, but it was a really, really sweet movie. It was one of the best Superman portrayals. John Krasinski plays Superman, and like the Superman crypto relationship. Our dude Nick needs to guest on our podcast and talk about it because we know how much he loves crypto. But yeah, it was a great.
Crypto's name is funnier now.
Oh, that's true.
It's 'cause
I'm
everyone's-
surprised they didn't make a
I'm a
joke.
crypto guy. I've met so many crypto
They
bros
should have
in
made
the
a
last
crypto.
week. that it's
That's
like,
actually a good point. That's one joke they didn't make. I was the only one who picked up on it, and I might be the only one who's picked up on it because I haven't seen any Easter egg videos or anything talking about this. But Mark Maron, the comedian and podcaster, plays Lex Luthor.
really? Well, that's good.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you guys are familiar with his podcast, the WTF podcast, but
Yeah, a little bit.
like the beginning of the podcast, there's always, the theme song. He says, "Lock the gates." And the villain says that to Lex Luthor. And I laughed out loud as a WTF podcast listener.
Nice.
And no one picked up on it in the theater. And again, no one's picked up on it in any of the reviews I've read. So maybe I'm the only one. So Mark Maron, if you're listening, I caught the WTF podcast Easter egg.
That's awesome. We like
You guys are-
podcast specific related Easter eggs. I think there should be more of that. Someone just randomly say Hard Knock Life in the next, DC.
Yeah, it's
movie
funny.
in
Like there's always the
years
Hard Knock
from
Life
now.
Easter egg in Annie, which I really appreciate.
They're yeah. There almost is.
So
It's
shout out.
almost
I love
like-
when they
it's-
always
it's
give us
almost
a
like
shout
the
out
chicken
whenever Annie.
that created these.
It's so interesting how that happened. how that
Yeah, it's
worked out.
weird coincidence because we totally invented that.
Exactly.
We did not.
Well, because I'm assuming when Annie says
sorry.
Hard Knock Life, she's saying NOC. Anyway, all right, that's enough. That's enough of this stupid bit.
I want to
Let's
add
go to-
one asterisk. Whenever we talk about the DC side, we talk of kind of like, oh, what's the sense of pity? Like, oh, like this, the slow, like the problem child. Oh, that those movies have some problems. We always have to add the asterisks that we're talking about the live action ones because the animated ones are really good.
Yeah, that's true.
They're,
Hey, and I love Shazam, so there are some live action ones that I do like. Okay.
Yeah.
no, not across the board.
I mean, we
Not across the
we
board.
love Birds
But
of
I
Prey.
mean,
Like there are
but with great
the Suicide
consistency,
Squad.
the animated ones are really well written and really well composed and seem like they have their shit together.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about like Harley Quinn and a bunch of the Batman movies and all that shit. Like that stuff feels like focused, not like luck of the draw. Maybe this will be the good DC movie, So they have some, something going on there.
Yeah. No, I mean, and it goes back to like Brittany was saying, these characters in and of themselves are such great characters. What they need is just someone who cares about the characters to tell the stories. And I think that's why Shazam works. That's why Birds of Prey work. That's why the Suicide Squad worked. Like James Gunn, Kathy Ann, Dave Sandberg, they care. Even James Wan's Aquaman, they care about the characters. They don't care about like, here, let's like just make Superman look badass. You know what I mean? Like, first of all, Superman's not supposed to look badass. He's a dork. Like, that's what's so great about Superman. He's the big blue Boy Scout. You know, we talked about this too I think last week, where like, you know, the Homelander evil Superman thing is what like certain people want Superman to be. You know, this is like evil tyrant who's unstoppable. But like, that's fundamentally not who's like, no one goes to a Superman story wanting to see mad tyrant Superman. You know, he's the vulnerable dork. Like, that's what makes him so like such a great superhero character. And people will say, I don't get Superman. Superman's boring. He's too powerful. Don't think about like, you know, his weakness isn't kryptonite. His weakness is his love for humanity. You know what I mean? Like, that's how you hurt Superman. So anyway, see League of Super Pets. It's great. Like, Dwayne Johnson is like, maybe he's the new Kevin Feige, because that dude is just like, I'm taking over DC. Because he's the only one who can get projects off the ground, apparently, at this point.
He might be the next president of the United States, but that's a whole different discussion.
Well, that's the premise of his show, Young Rock. He's like, the framing device on Young Rock is he's running for president. So if you smell,
I think that would be better than a couple of our other options, and I'm going to leave it there.
Well, let's take a break. That's it for DC. We'll take a break, and on the other side, we're going to go to the other side of the big two and talk about the latest Marvel series to drop on Disney Plus and break the fourth wall while we're at it. Guess what? Goalie Nutrition is sponsoring Hard Knock Life, and you can go to goalie.com to buy apple cider vinegar gummies. They're ashwagandha gummies, superfruit gummies, and super greens gummies, and you get 10% off plus free shipping if you use the code HARDKNOCK at goalie.com. This is honestly, I've been taking the goalie gummies now for a couple weeks, and I have to say, they're tasty and they're good for you. Have you guys been enjoying the goalie gummies?
I really like them. They're yummy, but it's a nice to add to my like routine of already like, I normally take just straight vitamin C, so it's nice to have like extra supplements.
For a long time, people have praised the benefits of apple cider vinegar. And, you know, as someone who's had to like drink straight apple cider vinegar sometimes when I'm not feeling well, or, you know, I have some joint pain and your mom is like, drink some apple cider vinegar. It's not the most appetizing home remedy, let's just say.
Right.
It tastes horrible.
So, like, the apple cider part is like, ooh, does it taste like apple cider? And it's like, no, it tastes like vinegar. But ACV is very good for you. And the fact that Goalie has been able to put the ACV into these tasty little gummies made with pectin and fruit peels, which make them vegan, which is cool. So if you're vegan, you can still rock these gummies, because everyone knows gummies are usually made out of like gelatin and nasty shit. These are made out of complete non-GMO, gelatin-free, gluten-free, vegan ingredients, and you can get the benefits, all of the benefits of apple cider vinegar, taking these tasty, delicious, convenient gummies. So go to goalie.com and use the code HARDKNOCK, that's HARDNOC, just like the podcast you're listening to. Get 10% off your purchase of Goalie products and free shipping.
It's a much better delivery device for that apple cider vinegar.
Yeah.
These Goalie gummies are great. You get it, and it's a delicious little candy. And I've been enjoying the Superfruits one. I did feel kind of refreshed after taking a few of those.
Yeah, no, but I'm loving them so far, and they're definitely tasty. If you just want tasty gummies, at least just eat them for the yumminess.
Yeah. So go to goalie.com, use the code HARDKNOCK, HARDNOC, get 10% off your purchase and free shipping at goalie.com with the code HARDKNOCK. Hard Knock Life is being sponsored by Athletic Greens. I want to talk to you about Athletic Greens. With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. Basically all the things. One of the best things about Athletic Greens is that it's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It also contains less than 1 gram of sugar and no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, and it still tastes good. Athletic Greens uses the best of the best products based on the latest science with constant product iterations and third-party testing. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day, that's it. No need for a million different pills or supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is partnering with Hard Knock Media to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/emerging. That's athleticgreens.com/emerging to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Now it's She-Hulk's turn. I'm curious where we stand as a consensus on this particular show. I know there were varying levels of excitement for this show, so where are we now that we've seen episode 1?
I really do feel like the CGI is really holding back the show. I hate to say it, but it really is. Like, I think, like I said, Tati I always knew she would be like great in the role acting wise because she's just that great of an actress. But yeah, I still feel like they could have went with so many different directions. And then her hair is naturally curly, but then when she turns into She-Hulk, her hair is like suddenly straight and like, I don't know. That was not a. I don't know.
Politics there.
Yeah, that's something else. Maybe I'm being too nitpicky, and someone is probably like,
thing.
she's being too
Suggest
nitpicky.
something.
But I still feel like, in terms of story wise, it's kind of like on the right track. I just don't like that they changed her origin to like, oh, they were in a car accident because of a spaceship, and not like her being shot up because of some big, case that she won, and Bruce having to like give her a blood transfusion and whatnot.
That was a little confusing to me because like it took me a minute to realize like Bruce's blood dripped on her and that's how she became the Hulk. Like, because I know in the comics that he actually has to give her his blood because she's dying. But like, how did his blood? Because I remember in the Edward Norton movie, like, didn't Stanley like drink Bruce's blood or something?
What?
Remember, because Bruce was working in the soda factory and he
and
like cut himself.
And yeah.
But then Stanley didn't turn into the Hulk, right? Like he just died. So I don't know. But that's because of gamma radiation, right? Like the only the Banner family has the ability to like, process.
They're pushing that they're mutants, and that's why, because they said, I don't know, the way they said it was.
Did they say mutant? Did they play the 90s animated theme again? Did I miss that?
I think they said like the way our blood mutates with like, they said something on the like, they might have necessarily said mutation, but the way it was like worded, it was implied that like they have a genetic something that makes them different where they can take gamma radiation. So I was like, so they're mutants now.
Everybody's a mutant. You're a mutant.
And I'm just like, I don't know, but I just hope that I will really like it as it goes forward. But I'm still kind of like, there's some other things I could have done different.
I wasn't too. I thought the CG was okay. Dominic, where are you on She-Hulk?
Well, I mean, I agree that the revised origin story is a little strange and compacted, but I think it's mainly like that blood transfusion thing would have taken just too long as far as a pilot episode goes. So that was one of those hokey sacrifices you have to do for the benefit of the forum. I mean, I like it conceptually. I kind of like the idea of a Marvel legal comedy. It, makes me nostalgic for things like Ally McBeal and LA Law and shit like that. And I definitely like some of the themes, but I won't say like I was like, in love with the style and just overall impact of this first episode. But I did want to talk about the themes because I think they're potentially really interesting. One thing I do like that they bring up the issue of, Jennifer Walters is a lawyer and she gets some superpowers and she just doesn't want to be a superhero. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Like it's just taken for granted. Oh, well, you have superpowers. You must go out in a costume and do.
I mean, that's the main
shit.
conflict of the episode because that's what Bruce is like.
Yes, and that's a good conflict because that's a very real human thing. That's an aspect we haven't explored enough. As we get oversaturated with all the superhero shows, we should get one that focuses on that kind of thing. What if if you do something else with it, or what if your job is already helping people along the life path that you want to do, and you don't need to do like the crazy fighting alien invasion shits. I think that's a very rich topic, and I wonder where they'll go with it.
Particularly when Matt Murdock shows up, because
that I'm looking forward to. But no, like I've been saying, I want to make clear that it's story wise. I think this is for the most part how a She-Hulk show should be, a legal comedy. But yeah, I don't like the origin change. I didn't expect an origin change. So when that happened, I was like, when I saw the spaceship in there, I'm like, don't tell me they're gonna do it a car crash instead of like the whole like. I was already like, okay, they're trying to piss me off on purpose now.
What did we think of Ruffalo? He really got to play comedy. You know, like Hulk has been trending more comedic over the course of the films, but this was like full on like one-liners and jokes. And I've seen some chatter from some of the, you know, worst sides of the internet where people don't like this version of Hulk, and we don't care what they think. But I did find it interesting that, you know, like this was straight up like I said, comedic Hulk. He wasn't smart Hulk. He was comedic Hulk. Even like the I think the scene I laughed the most was when she emerges for the first time and he's like talking to her like a horse. He's like, hey, and she's like, why are you talking to me? Like I was like, what? You're not somebody else. I thought that was really funny. And the, you know, like I think the reason I didn't have a problem with the CG is I felt like the CG, you know, there was so much of the interaction between Hulk and She-Hulk was in their Hulk personas and like their emotions shown through the CG faces. And I was really impressed with that. So I think this is probably his only episode because I don't foresee him being in the rest of the series. And I kind of wish they didn't give away so much of their interactions in all of the trailers because I feel like I saw everything of Bruce, but
they've been doing that with all their shows in general. They've been showing a lot of the first episode in the trailer, so that like you're kind of want to stick around to watch the rest since you haven't really seen the rest. I feel like they do that even with the Star Wars shows. I feel like they do that too. That it's just random little stuff from the first episode or 2 episodes, whatever they release at the first night. But
yeah, that works. That's much better than the ones where they show you every cool thing that happens.
Yeah,
like,
I guess my point is that if Hulk is
trailer,
only in the first episode, I feel like I saw all the Hulk stuff before this episode. I wish they would have held back on some of the Hulk stuff just because, yeah, I mean, he's still the Hulk. He's still like one of the biggest members of the Avengers to be in a Disney Plus series, you know.
I think the lighthearted angle is a great flavor, and I'm glad they did that. I mean, they're freaking Cabanim like in beach gear and stuff. It looks like a silly rom-com, or not a rom-com, but like I don't know, famcom, like a sitcom, like a family of folks. Great. No, I'm not saying I found it like the most immediately hilarious thing ever, but I like that there was that angle because, you know, you could argue that some parts of the MCU take themselves so seriously, and also the Hulk was always the funny one in the Avengers. Back in freaking Avengers 1, I think he was the funniest one.
Puny God.
Yeah, but just like classic moment. So
I did like that they followed up essentially, like thematically to your point about why does Jen not, you know, lose herself and she can easily turn back and forth, you know, right away from She-Hulk to her normal self. And if you think about it, it's the same reason Bruce gives in the Avengers. I'm always angry. So like that's when, you know, that was the big scene in Avengers, like to show that Bruce can control when he turns into the Hulk. He just I don't exactly know what that means. That's one of those Whedonisms that, like, you know, in the moment, like, oh yeah, and then as you think about it, like, wait, what does that mean? But they kind of like explore it a little bit more in She-Hulk, where she says, like, you know, I have to like constantly control my rage because I am a woman in the world, and that's how I'm able to, like, you know, easily accept the She-Hulk persona, I guess.
Yeah, and if I may, like, and a lot of people were hating on that because they thought it was like, oh, too like overtly feminist or whatever. But I think it was a great point to make. I don't know if it was like the best written
like
speech
scratching the surface of feminism, and I feel like the other problem is the other people who are saying it's too feminist don't watch enough stuff maybe that actually is more feminist, because to me that was just barely scratching the surface, because I feel like also in general white women are more conditioned, or white passing women are like, you use your tears instead to get what you want or to get through stuff. Like if you're seen as angry, you're gonna like, you're not seen as dainty and all this stuff. So I feel like, I don't know, I feel like for white women it's a little different than versus, you know, going in further into it. So I just feel like it just kind of scratches the surface of
it definitely is.
Feminism.
And I don't know if it's like as, you know, as cringy as the, you know, Jon Stewart's I've been facing barriers like that all my life thing that we brought up the other day with Nate. And, you know, there's making a good point, and then there's how you write it. Those are two different parts of the thing. And I definitely think it is on the verge of hokey because he says it broadly in a sort of all women do this kind of thing, or all women have this kind of thing. And that maybe that could have been written in a little bit more, subtle way. But I think it's a good concept, and I think they'll explore it more. I mean, I like it because back to what you were saying about the I'm always angry thing, that's something people misinterpret about the Hulk, or there are different interpretations of Hulk, right? I mean, Bruce Banner is like Bruce Banner is a nerd, right? He's also that like very, skinny, dorky little guy who becomes a monster, but he is containing a lot of rage because he doesn't express it by being buff and aggro all the time. He is containing a lot of rage, and so that's where I think it nicely parallels the speech that she makes. It's like, well, just because I am a small framed white woman does not mean I'm not containing a lot of rage. And just to circle back, that's like one of the things that makes the Hulk so relatable. Like arguably the Hulk is Marvel's most relatable character because you don't have to know any shit about the Hulk. We all have rage, and occasionally a monster comes out. And basically everyone can tune into that idea, right?
Absolutely. And again, Ruffalo is just a great take on the character. And I've always thought that he deserves his own film. Like, I think there's some legalese why we can't ever get a Hulk film, although there are rumors for a World War Hulk film in the works. But I just would love Ruffalo to get the opportunity to like really explore the Hulk character, whether it's Smart Hulk or he goes back to Savage Hulk or whatever it ends up being. Because I just think his take on Bruce Banner and the Hulk has just been really really great. Particularly like the only Hulk movie we ever got is kind of like decanonized. Not decanonized because clearly Emil Blonsky's coming back and like there are aspects of
he has been back technically already.
Right. Yes, that's right. Well, and and let me do a mea culpa because my assumption all along was She-Hulk was going to take place during the blip because Smart Hulk's arm was fine, and they explained it that her blood healed his arm somehow. So, but all along I thought that from the trailers that this was going to take place during the blip, and we find out this is post blip storytelling because his arm is still in a sling in the beginning of the show. And because anyways, I bring that up because I thought this was going to be the origin of Wong and Abomination's kind of like cage fighting thing.
Yeah, their league.
But it doesn't seem to be. It's because this seems to be taking place after Shang-Chi, so I don't know.
But wait, let's talk about that.
Maybe it's post blip, but pre Shang-Chi. I don't know.
Because I think they are going to go to the wrestling storyline, some form of that.
Right.
Because
they have to. Like Wong and Abomination are both in the show, so they have to, right?
Yeah, and that would be nice because let me just say, Titania's outfit was fucking ridiculous. I mean, I'm like, when nerd for the outfit, in my opinion, that outfit was ridiculous. But the thing that it like suggested to me was like, a WWE wrestler, and so that's why I hope that's what that was sort of seeding that aesthetic. Don't get me wrong, I like the character of Titania. I like Jamil a lot. I thought they gave her a funny look. And, again, just for context, remember, for those who don't know, who may be listening, Marvel had this whole thing that was a spoof of World Wrestling, WWE, which was then WWF, and they called it like the Unlimited Class Wrestling or something. And it was just a bunch of super strong people doing wrestling.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
In the comics? You did not
I don't remember that.
Unlimited Class Wrestling. That's where they just sort of factory bred like 100 people who had, Spider-Man strength level. They could all lift 10 tons. And then they just created like 100 new characters and they're always around. What is that priceless Captain America issue where he's on a luxury yacht fighting like 20 women and they're all like super strong, enhanced.
I have no recollection. I feel like this is
completely ridiculous outfits.
We need to bring Nate back in for he may have more since it's
You're
comics
right.
and
That's
wrestling,
where
maybe Nate
that's
Nate will
where
have more.
wrestling and
Yeah.
Marvel are going to overlap. So we definitely need Nate back in here, and I will hunt up that issues.
Yeah,
from
please do.
that
Well,
era.
I'm glad you brought up Captain America because we got confirmation that Captain America fucks.
And probably goes down on people too.
Well,
But
I mean,
that
clearly
was-
the only one who
was that
does this is
inferred?
Batman, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone who's cool does that.
And I love that Chris Evans tweeted about the She-Hulk
Mm-hmm.
scene. I'm a little disappointed with some girl on the USO tour.
Look, it was definitely what's her name from Game of Thrones.
They clearly Ruffalo said it was a chick on the tour.
That's
I
right.
know that Natalie Dormer was thirsty as hell. I don't know that Natalie.
Who'd you
'Cause-
think it was going to be?
I mean, I
Firestar?
don't
Who'd you
know.
think it was going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I guess
That just seems very plausible. I don't know why people are making such a big deal out of it, except that
I think because people wanted Peggy to be his first.
Yeah.
Or, what you know what I mean? Like I think that's, and then there's other people who have the other side. They're like, oh my god, but that like erases him being bi, and I'm like, no, it does not erase him being bi. Do you not know how being bi works? Like, it's so crazy.
What, is he canonically bi?
Well,
or
everyone
that-
thinks he's bi because him and Bucky, and it's just
Oh.
like, okay, but like he can still hook up with people who identify as women. If like he's bi, he's not gonna not stop being bi if he's hooked up with women or kissed women. Like I don't-
One thing that, and I think this was the case in Far From Home, to the world, Captain America is dead,
yes.
but he's not actually. He's just old.
I don't know because some of
wait.
the
Oh, yeah,
things
he's
that
dead.
Bruce was saying made me feel like he
Yeah,
might
can like does Steve can
dead.
Steve just not like visit Bruce? Like, you know, like
yeah, the way he was talking about him felt very like I think Steve might have finally like
did he just like have a heart
Okay.
attack right after he
I
gave
know,
the
I
shield
was
to
just like-
Falcon?
well, I think Steve might actually
it
be
is
dead.
it is a gray area.
Because I know that like in Far From Home there was like the dedication to Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, but like, and I thought that was just to the world. They'll tell them Captain America's dead. That's why, you know, there was this whole thing about we need the next Captain America. But like Steve was just kind of like chilling somewhere. But I guess even then, like Peggy's dead, so it was. I guess, you know, what's he doing? He's just like hanging out. So I don't know.
Watching HBO Max.
Or is Peggy dead? Like, because
Eating
again,
pudding.
we argued about this when Endgame came out. I feel like he's living in a different alternate parallel universe. He's not just living in the MCU proper. Did they ever clear that up?
No,
Because I know the writers and the directors don't agree on that. And then there's the whole time travel shit in the MCU is getting even more weird. So anyway, one last thing I wanted to mention about She-Hulk is that, you know, before Deadpool comes to the MCU, She-Hulk predates Deadpool breaking the fourth wall in the comics. So I don't want to hear people saying she's ripping off Deadpool. But She-Hulk breaks the fourth wall in the series. To this point, no one has ever broken the fourth wall in the MCU. Do we give a shit? Is it just a storytelling
it.
device and no one should like make a big deal out of it? Or is this speaking to some greater ability of She-Hulk's in the, like, how is She-Hulk aware of the audience? Clearly when she does it the first time, she's surprised and Hulk hears her. So like, I don't know if that's just the joke in the scene or, you know, we're nerds, so we just have to break this down for a few minutes anyway. But like, what is the in story, in canon reason that she's breaking the fourth wall? Because in Deadpool, it's just 'cause like Wade's crazy, right? Like that's just like
He likes to talk.
Yeah, the ability. He's not breaking the fourth wall. He's just an insane person. In the
No,
Deadpool.
he does break the fourth wall.
No, but like in
Talk
the
about the reason why or the reasoning why.
yeah, like I'm
And I
saying
don't
for like
think
when
there is
people
much reasoning except
see
that
him
it's
in the
funny.
movie talking to the audience, he's not actually talking to the like Colossus. Like, who are you talking to?
Well, for one thing, it's extraordinarily helpful for people who don't follow the comic book movies. It's a good device. You just check in with the audience, say, this is what's going on. It's a little bit weird.
Like when Zach Morris does it, no one's questioning, like, does Zach Morris have the ability in the Saved by the Bell universe to break the fourth? So it's a storytelling device. But this, again, us being nerds, this being the MCU.
If you want to break it down, maybe she's talking to the Watcher, who has to have detailed, deposition type notes of everything she does. Lawyers record a lot of their things into
That's who she's
They
talking
take
to, the Watcher.
notes and stuff.
I mean, she also gets in trouble with, like, I think, is it the time variant? It's something like that set of people that she ends up getting in trouble with. And
Doesn't she like
In
try
the
a
comics,
case in
I
front of the
think you're
TVA
right.
in the comics or something?
yes, because she gets in trouble, and I think Star Fox Harry Styles is involved, and yeah, so I don't
Yeah,
know if
she could be talking to some of those Time Lord people. Time Lord's not the right word. I'm sorry, but
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right?
it's a
Yeah.
good device. I think I mean, it goes with the lighthearted legal comedy again thing. I think they did that in Ally McBeal, or maybe I'm not. Anyway, but it's cool. Yes, there doesn't have to be a reason,
Right.
and I would suggest that even if there was a reason, it might be stupid.
Yeah. Agreed. And I'll
But
just
maybe
say
it's
too,
the Beyonder, and that just sets up this whole thing.
well, and I'll say this too, like, you know, there are your share of YouTube videos and everything of people like trying to break down what is the fourth wall breaking. And I'll just say that again, you know, in Ms. Marvel, when the graffiti became animated, no one was like, is that happening in universe, or is that just like a directorial stylistic choice?
Yes,
You know what I'm
it's a
saying?
directorial style thing.
Yeah.
Some-
And
yes.
then I think sometimes, you know, there's just directorial stylistic choices. But
Yes.
there, you know, I think again, as nerds, we always want to know, like, are things diegetic? Like if you think about like the Batman, right? When Bruce Wayne is narrating and you're like, oh, this is gonna be one of those devices where the main character narrate, and then you realize he's actually writing a journal. And you're like,
Oh,
it's
okay.
like,
Yeah, no, that's
he's
true,
not
that's right.
narrating the movie, he's documenting his adventures in his little Batman journal.
As a nerd, I want to know what the word diegetic means. 'cause
It's
I don't
when
really know
the
what it
when
means.
this like the song you're hearing is actually playing in universe.
Oh,
So
okay,
like
okay.
so like the Something in the Way, the Nirvana song, is actually diegetic in the Batman. It's playing over the scene, but then you realize it's playing because Bruce Wayne's listening to it on
Got it on
headphones
his part.
when he's-
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's what diegetic means. So like the
God
Hans
damn.
Zimmer score is never diegetic because it's not like Batman's playing Hans Zimmer music when he's driving
Right.
the Batmobile.
Right.
Yeah.
Although that would be cool. That would be like a Lego Batman joke, right? Where it's like, you
Yeah.
know, this pounding orchestral music, and then like, you know, Batman changes the tune on his CD player or something.
Maybe she's talking to Diegetic Man.
There you go. It's
Those
not the L.
people.
Ron Hubbard
Worse.
Scientology book. That's not what
It is not.
diegetics
I'm glad you cleared that up.
is. All right. What's nerd popping, Brittany Monet?
I don't have anything this week. I'm horrible. I'm
Really?
so
What are
sorry.
you excited for
Not
House of the Dragon?
horrible.
Actually, yes, because I love Matt Smith. I mentioned this today and I forgot already, but I love Matt Smith, so that's my main reason I'm tuning in. I'm not sure how I'm gonna feel about a new Game of Thrones show as a whole, but yeah. And I've just been watching Sailor Moon. I got a new Sailor Moon Artemis purse thing that I tweeted earlier today, so that's
Nice.
my life lately. I still haven't watched Sandman because, like I said, my mom said she wants to watch it.
Yeah.
So now it's like
When they
I'm-
dropped a brand new episode, like they
I know.
had like a two-parter.
yeah, I saw that and I was like, gosh, dang it.
No, that would have been really like cool had I watched the rest of them and like, oh, I got two. So now when I watch it, it'll just be like 11 episodes instead of,
Yeah,
you know, it won't feel special that I got two extra episodes.
yeah, I know, but I'll get to it eventually.
Yeah, me
I'll-
too. I'm slowly. I'll save it for my nerd popping. What I was watching instead of the Sandman. Dominic Ma, what is nerd popping for you?
Oh, what's nerd popping? Saints Row video game comes out this week, to go over to the video game side of things for a while. And I'm pretty excited about that because it's a reboot of the series that ended with 4, and I enjoyed it a lot. I think it is much less obnoxious than Grand Theft Auto.
Can you explain for those of us who don't game what Saints Row is?
Well, it's a game that's a lot like Grand Theft Auto, except it's
Hence the
funnier
comparison.
and not as fucking just bad taste, and not as much fucking crap and driving around LA realistically, which is what you don't want to do. When people were complaining, or when it seemed like they were too much of just a Grand Theft Auto clone, they diverged. In Saints Row 4, they went totally crazy. The characters get superpowers, they fight off aliens, the music from Transformers the movie is playing. On a purely nerdy level, Saints Row 4 is like the funnest nerdy thing ever. And then I'll go another level. Now, it's probably, they're not, this new reboot is going to have better graphics, but it's not going to be as weird as all that. But I'll also say that it is kind of a cool game, as far they have a custom character creator, so you can be like, and it works really well. So you can be kind of any body type or any color or any style you want. So that's kind of fun. And they're kind of recasting it from their original cast, which is kind of like white gangster types, to these are like, you know, black and brown characters, and they're going for very Southwestern, Latin.
When you say
influence
reboot, they're
angle.
basically starting over at the beginning and then just updating it for.
Yeah.
When was the original first? When did that first come out?
It was Saints Row 1, which I haven't even played. I don't know, in mid-aughts.
So
or
this was like
something.
several generations ago. So like this,
It's all of the 21st century.
well, but I'm saying like like PS2, PS3.
Yeah. No, it started way back
in terms of
PS2
like
days.
going from PS2 to PS5. It's a big
Yeah, and
leap
this-
for them to.
Yeah, and it's been a while since Saints Row 4. They kind of killed the goose or whatever, and that was PS4 era. That might have even been late PS3. Anyway, it's been a while, so there are a lot of question marks as they reboot it.
Yeah,
But I'm excited because it's super fun.
cool.
And yourself?
Yeah, so I instead of watching The Sandman, what I did instead is I binged all of the show called Severance on Apple TV Plus.
Oh, I've been wanting to watch that.
That is such a good show. It might be my favorite show of the year. And I'm a couple months late, as everyone else has been talking about this show for months now. It's got like a gazillion Emmy nominations. So we just watched all I think was it 10 episodes of it. And it's so good. I don't want to spoil, but it's like here the big surprise I had, like when I saw the Emmy nominations, I saw it was nominated in all the drama categories. I was like, it's a drama? Because it stars Adam Scott and a bunch of like improv actors and John Turturro and Christopher Walken, but it's directed by Ben Stiller. So I thought it was like an office comedy, like a sci-fi office comedy. And it's not. I mean, there's some, it's like darkly humorous, but it's so the premise, if you're not familiar, is basically there's this operation called Severance that allows you to split your work self from your home self. So basically you don't retain memories of being at the office, and so your office persona is completely separate from your home life persona. And it kind of explores the ethical and the ramifications of doing that, of kind of bifurcating your mind. Because a lot of times, especially when you're at work and you're kind of like, God, I just want to be, it is kind of tempting to think like it would be nice if I like wake up at 9 o'clock, go into the office, and immediately it's 5 o'clock and I leave, kind of thing, and not have to think about work. But then the flip side of that is your work self has no like exteriority, right? So it's like they never get to rest. Like they walk into the office, and when they leave, they come right back into the office because they have no perception of the outside world. And then there's some like there's also some creepiness to it because you don't know what these people are doing in the office. It's like it gives off like some of those Lost vibes. Remember when like we started discovering like the hatch and like all this like old school technology and like what's going on the
Initiative.
Woo, yeah, and it kind of gives off some of that, like this Lumen Corporation to me gives off some like Dharma Initiative vibes, like what kind of evil thing is this corporation doing? But it's really, really good. And the finale was so amazing it pissed me off because I didn't realize there wasn't a next episode, and it ends on this like major cliffhanger. So like we were like trying to go to next. I was like, wait, there's no next? Why is there no next? And then we got like mad for a while, realizing that we have to wait. But check out Severance. It's really good. It's on Apple TV Plus.
Vanessa loves that show, I think.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. Maybe we'll bring Vanessa back and she and I will dive deep into Severance. Anyway, that's Hard Knock Life. Brittany, Monet, how can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at Hi Brittany Monet, at least both on Twitter and Instagram. You can also check out at Naomi Podcast, which is basically the backlog of Naomi Show, Black Lightning, and the Lituation Room, what I do with Nate and Vanessa and Clement Bryan, who's the only one you guys have not met yet. So he's always busy, so it's hard to find him now.
Come on, Clement. We're going to get you on Hard Knock. I'm telling you, we're just going to take over Lituation Room, and you guys will just be Hard Knock Life going forward.
I don't think that's what's happening, Keith. I think the reverse thing might be happening.
They're taking over Hard Knock Life. It's someone, it's a hostile takeover one direction or the other.
Yeah, it depends what side you're looking on.
Yeah. Hey, that's fine. If you guys want, if the Lituation Room wants to just take over Hard Knock Life.
Yeah, corporate mergers. And
we'll call it Lituation Room Discovery.
Then we'll cancel all our old projects that people
we'll
are
just
looking forward
start
to.
wiping all our.
Not that we had any old projects people look for, but then at last we'll have a 10-year plan to overtake Mark Maron's podcast that we
Lock
can
the
unleash.
Dominic, how can people find you on the internet?
I'm sorry. I'm Dominic Mine on Instagram or Twitter. I'm Dama, DOMMAH.
You can find me on Twitter at the real Chow, _real_Chow, and on Instagram at real Keith Chow. Follow the Nerds of Color at the Nerds of Color, and go to hardknockmedia.com to find this and all of the podcasts in the Hard Knock family. Give us a rating and a review if you do. Buy our merch at TeePublic. Go to patreon.com/the Nerds of Color to support us there, and find our videos and subscribe at youtube.com/the Nerds of Color. And until next time.
Don't forget who showed this is.
That's what She-Hulk said.
Bye.
She said.